These people are barbarians. They are savages and should be treated as such. As we have discussed, and as you've no doubt seen, because it's so prevalent that it can't be avoided, leftists across the country have been celebrating the brutal murder of Charlie Kirk. This is not just happening in the comments on YouTube or in the left-wing digital fever swamps like Reddit and Blue Sky. This is not a case of the internet isn't real life. This is happening everywhere, on the internet and in the real world. They're showing up to Charlie's vigils to mock him and trample on his memorials. They're celebrating in the street, young and old, men and women, leftists of all professions and persuasions. It's happening everywhere. It's not fringe. It's not a rare occurrence. It's not an aberration or an exception to the rule. It is the rule. Now, I know we want to tell ourselves otherwise. I know we like to think that the bile and vitriol that we see on social media somehow is not reflective of what's happening out in reality. But I'm sorry to say, and I am sorry to say, that it is reality. It's not a dream world. This is not a hallucination. It's a thing that exists in reality. And on social media, the people who are saying all those terrible things, they exist in reality. Now, granted, there are plenty of bots, but there are also millions of actual humans. Now, I know that when you go out in public, when you go to the gas station or the grocery store, you look around and you see that everyone is being basically polite. Well, it kind of depends on where you live, I guess. But hopefully, if you live in a semi-civilized place, you look around and everyone is being basically polite. And you think, well, if any of these people are leftists, surely they wouldn't celebrate if I died. I mean, look how polite and normal they seem. But unfortunately, all the evidence tells us that even the polite leftists in the produce aisle would be happy if you were killed right in front of them. I don't want that to be the case. I wish it were not the case. I'm not happy to report that it is the case, but it is the case all the same. The majority of the left, in other words, agree with this protester at a Charlie Kirk vigil over the weekend. Watch.
I don't want your salvations.
Why?
I want you to die. We're not going to give you a second chance, even when you beg for it, on your knees, begging and pleading.
I want you to die, he sings. Now, never mind that he has the singing voice of a hearing-impaired toad. This is what they think of you. This is how they feel. They will post it, they will say it, they will sing it proudly at your vigil. But the good news is that for the first time ever, they may actually pay a price for it. As leftists have gloated and cheered the murder of Charlie Kirk, another much more unexpected phenomenon has occurred. A bunch of them are losing their jobs because of it. The Daily Wire reports on just a few of the many dozens of examples. Quote, the response from the left to the assassination of conservative commentator and Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk has been nothing short of sickening. They have justified and even celebrated his death, and some have begun to face consequences for their actions. MSNBC's Matthew Dowd was the first domino to fall after he essentially argued during live coverage of the assassination that Kirk had encouraged the politically motivated violence that claimed his life. Following Dowd's ouster, MSNBC sent a letter to all employees urging them to do better. Matthew Foley reported a letter was sent to all MSNBC staff admonishing them and saying they need to do better following Matthew Dowd's firing for his heinous comments. An Office Depot employee was also terminated over the weekend for refusing to print a poster of Kirk for a prayer vigil, telling members of the group Michigan Forward that the poster was political propaganda. The poster in question featured a photo of Kirk along with the lines, "The legendary Charlie Kirk, 1993 to 2025. A Secret Service agent who said that Kirk deserved to be killed was placed on leave and expected to be fired. Nick Sorter reported, citing a source within the Department of Homeland Security. Secret Service agent who publicly said Charlie Kirk deserved to be killed has officially been placed on leave, expected to be imminently fired per DHS, he said. Other reports indicate that an advisory board member at the Cincinnati Bengals star Joe Burrow's charitable foundation was terminated for posts celebrating Kirk's murder, as was a communications specialist with the Carolina Panthers. A number of others have either been terminated or suspended, and calls are still going out for more to come. As I said, these are just a few examples. There have been many, many, many cases, and more added every hour, of leftists getting fired after publicly celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. One of the most egregious examples is a nurse at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. She posted, "F his kids, F his ancestors, especially the bitch who birthed him." She now joins the long list of people who've been fired for expressing sentiments like these in public. They come from, again, all walks of life: nurses, airline pilots, corporate executives, government workers, teachers, A public school teacher in Canada reportedly showed a video of the assassination to her students and said that Charlie deserved to die, and she's now been suspended. Now, it's the second part, the part where these ghouls experience some small measure of punishment, that's given rise to a conversation about cancel culture and accusations from the left, and even from some on the right, that conservatives are now practicing the very cancel culture that they once decried. By calling for and celebrating the firing of people who applauded Charlie's murder, we have exposed ourselves as hypocrites, they say. We're no different than the ones we condemn. We are now the proponents of cancel culture. What happened is free speech, they demand. How can we call ourselves free speech advocates if we're also advocating for people to experience consequences for saying unimaginably heinous things? Well, allow me to explain. There is a fundamental difference between the cancel culture that the left engages in and the quote-unquote canceling that the right is doing in the wake of Charlie's assassination and the left's celebration of it. The difference is that the left will cancel you for saying objectively true, good, and normal things. To the extent that the right cancels you, it'll be for saying objectively abhorrent, perverse, and sick things. And this distinction matters. As I've said for years, the problem with the left's attack on speech is not just that they're attacking speech, but that they're attacking true and right speech. They want you to be fired for saying, for example, that men can't have babies and women don't have penises. The problem isn't simply that they're trying to get you fired for saying something. It's that they're trying to get you fired for saying the most basic and true things that it's possible for a person to say. The left's war on speech is not a war just on speech, it's a war on truth. They want to punish truth. And that will always be worse. Obviously, significantly worse. There is a difference in kind between the statement, men aren't women, and the statement, Charlie Kirk deserved to die because he was a fascist, Nazi, racist bigot. What's the difference? Well, the first statement is the most obviously true thing that anyone can ever say. The second statement is a demented, deranged, perverse, sick, evil, wicked, horrendous, outrageous lie that not only smears the good name of an innocent man, but also implicitly encourages violence against the millions of people who agree with his politics. That's the difference. And the idea that we can't advocate social consequences against the latter statement without also accepting or approving of such consequences for the former statement is asinine. The idea that society must treat all speech exactly the same, as if it's impossible to distinguish between banal everyday truth and the deranged hallucinatory rantings of bloodthirsty sociopathic hobgoblins, is totally ludicrous. Now, I don't think that such ranting should be made illegal. I don't think that the people celebrating Charlie's death should be banned by the government from saying those things. But I do think it's good that these people lose their jobs. It's good that they are shamed and humiliated and must live with the repercussions for the rest of their lives. It's good if they wake up every day until they die wishing they had not said what they said. That's what I want. I want them to wake up every single day and the first thing they think is, my God, I wish I hadn't said that. It took my entire life off the rails. Everything has changed for the worse because I had to go and say the most vile and disgusting thing that anyone could ever say. I want that to be the first thought in their head every day when they wake up. We cannot have a civilized and decent society unless there are severe social consequences for people who express publicly these kinds of sentiments. Okay, because these people are barbarians. They are savages and should be treated as such. Free speech does not mean that we should act with anything but revulsion and disgust to people who say revolting and disgusting things and who in turn reveal themselves to be revolting and disgusting human beings. I'll take that nurse I mentioned earlier. Just think about this. Upon seeing that a man with a wife and 2 young children have been shot in the throat on stage, her first reaction was to cuss out his kids and his mother and gloat about the murder. Now, that sort of statement, look, I know we're all desensitized from being on the internet, But you have to understand, I mean, that is not just an expression of an opinion. That is a revelation of her character, and it is the character of someone who is barely human at this point, barely has a soul. You know, it's a character of someone who is unfit to live among civilized people, of someone who should be shunned and shamed and alienated by society. Not through force of law, not through legislation or legal consequence, certainly not through violence, but through social rejection. Because people who cuss out the children of men who are murdered on live TV deserve to be socially rejected. Because monsters should be treated like monsters, and she is a monster. Now, the left may now say that even if it doesn't infringe on free speech rights to fire someone for saying something abhorrent, that even so, we should have more grace and forgiveness. Well, guys, you should have thought of that before you spent the last 20 years trying to destroy our lives for saying anything that you even vaguely disagree with. You should have thought of that before you danced on my friend's grave and laughed at his grieving widow. No, what you want is for us to grant you radical tolerance and acceptance while you continue to give us no such thing in return. But that deal doesn't work anymore, guys. The deal doesn't work. The deal is over. It's off. We never should have gone along with it to begin with, and now it is over. You will be held to your own standard. You will have your own rules enforced against you. You will be given your own medicine, whether you like it or not. And you will not like it. But here we are. You brought it on yourselves. And that is why the leftists celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder are today canceled. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.